read a lot of poetry, and I thought it's really fun for me seeing the poetry at the beginning of each chapter ending and trying to figure out how it fits into the chapters, so I really enjoyed it as a reader. When I read your books, it feels to me like the cities of New York and London are almost like characters in their own right in the book. When you first started writing City of Bones, did you feel like there was much contemporary urban fantasy around for young adults, or did you feel like you were stepping out a little bit on your own and doing something different?
I felt like I was doing something that echoed back to something that had been done in the 1980s, I mean, I'd sort of grown up reading sort of classic children's fantasy, reading Narnia, reading Tolkien, and I loved them. But then when I went to sort of graduate to adult fantasy books, as you do, I found them all to be set in this sort of vaguely medieval, land where there were a lot of, there was a lot of stew, and that was all that we ever seemed to be eating. And everybody lived in castles, and there were sort of horses, and I was like, I don't really want to learn about horses, and then I wound up actually having a horse in my third book, so I guess that's how it goes. But I was just like, I want to relate to these worlds, these removed fantasy worlds. Some work more than others, but mostly I find them set in sort of, the sort of generic fantasia of faux medievalism, and I was just like, maybe I don't like fantasy all that much. And then I found this genre of urban fantasy that just started springing up, which brought all of these magical creatures into our world, and so there was really these people like Charles DeLint and Ellen Kushner and Terry Windling and Midori Snyder and Emma Bull, who were suddenly bringing like fairies and warlocks and vampires and all of that into like our modern day world. There's a wonderful book called War for the Oaks, in which a huge fairy war takes place in the city of Minneapolis. There's the Border Town books, in which there's a sort of created world called Border Town, which is sort of lies on the border between the human world and the fairy world, and there's all these magically powered motorcycles and these great all this just fantastic sort of mixture of modern culture and magic, and that stuff really resonated with me. And suddenly I was like, oh, okay, this is the stuff that I really love. Now I really do love fantasy. I just don't really like castles and stew all that much. And so, when I came to write it myself, I found that there wasn't that much of it being written for young adults at that time. That these old classic books that I had grown up reading had gone out of print, and that there wasn't this stuff. And so I started thinking about, how to kind of take, what I had loved when I was growing up and kind of adapt it and change it and make it more modern. And I wanted to bring in mythology, stories of angels and demons, which weren't part of what I had grown up reading, and bring that into the modern world. And so that is what I did. And so I wanted to mix mythology and folklore and sort of modern cities all together, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And then, of course, when I went to actually sell the book, and this is funny now, but it was funny at the time. It was like 2005, and then all the editors were like, "Well, teens don't really want to read about vampires." I